running, the shins may not be subjected to the same kind of mechanical abuse as they may be in heel strike running. For one, heel strike running may trigger more waves of impact forces, which may unleash vibrating loops in a repetitive manner that rattles the muscles and bones of the lower leg, which may eventually transcend into pain and possibly injury. Of course, reducing high impact during running is very central to reducing the threat of muscle pain and cramps and injury, but we know very well to accomplish less forceful, less harmful landings of the foot during running, landing with a forefoot strike seems to work best because it naturally generates more cushioning than impact. Therefore, forefoot striking during running may transmit less harmful bone-crushing impact forces or force waves on account of that there's less braking or less collision engagement between the body and the ground, especially since cadence or step rate, which is the number of times the feet touch the ground per minute, seems to be naturally higher in forefoot running than it is in heel strike running. Therefore, the ground contact periods of the feet in forefoot running are shorter and more brief in duration, which strongly matches the theoretical prediction and research-based evidence that in forefoot running, there's a much smaller spectrum of impact force variables as compared with heel strike running, and from this, landing with the forefoot strike may do a much better job at effectively filtering out the risk factors underlying many common running related injuries like shin splints. But the shin protecting value of forefoot strike running really seems to be more optimized at faster running speeds, not by running slow. It turns out that by actually running faster, and that magic pace seems to be around a 7-minute mile or faster, while landing with the forefoot strike, of course, may restrict the flow of high impact on the lower leg and may catalyze a dramatic reversal of shin splints. So if you are grappling with shin splints and you're stubborn and you don't want to rest like many of us dedicated runners, running faster, even with the condition, may actually help cool off the stress and strain on the shins, and by extension may help effectively put an end to your shin splints. Now, I know speed is somewhat of a scary word in running, especially to new runners, because there is this common consensus and assumption that increased running speed means a direct increase in impact forces, which equates to an increased risk of overall injury. But overall, the main competing theories is that speed work in running is a big hotbed for injury, but this is only true if you have insufficient running form and biomechanics that supports high impact ground contact forces like heel strike running so often does. This line of thought does not really apply to forefoot strike running because remember, waves of impact forces are very comparatively weak in forefoot strike running than in heel strike running, which is why it feels more comfortable to land on your forefoot when doing speed work, because forefoot striking at faster running velocities naturally seems to deliver mechanical parameters that rounds out impact peak forces and silences the collision force. So in forefoot strike running, most of the shin protection rests on the lines of evidence showing that the shins are not subjected to the same mechanical stress as they are in heel strike running by virtue of less impact streamlining through the shins in forefoot strike running. Also, much of the shin protective properties of forefoot strike running is related to the observation that many forefoot runners don't lift their forefoot back when their forefoot strikes the ground, but rather most forefoot runners tend to relax the front part of their foot when the foot strikes the ground, or if they do pull their forefoot up before their foot strikes the ground, it's actually very minimal and not as extreme as in heel strike running. By doing minimal forefoot lifting at each step may help cool off, strain, and reduce tension buildup in the top of the ankle and in the anterior or top portion of the shin. And we've seen evidence of this outlined in some of the research, whereby most often The front of the ankle is very relaxed in a forefoot strike landing pattern at touchdown during running. This is related to diminished muscle activity in the shin area, which is indicative of less muscle use or the muscle remaining in a more relaxed state, which in turn may help decelerate the buildup of tension in the shin and may also help save energy because that part of the lower leg is relaxed and not as mechanically over engaged as it is in heel strike running, to which constantly lifting and smacking your forefoot as in heel strike running may certainly be a recipe for frequent mechanical distress on the shin and seems to be the usual risk factor for shin splints. So this is why forefoot strike running is so often a very positive factor for the benefit of relieving painful shins. But new reports make the very strong assertion that to make the shins less mechanically sensitive to running as a whole, in addition to your foot strike pattern during running, most of the shin protection may come from your running speed, whereby running too slow, even if you do land with a forefoot strike, slower running speeds may catalyze a surge in impact that may drill into the shins, whereas running at faster running velocities while landing with a foot strike pattern may be an essential part in bringing about dramatic impact reductions, which may be a very important part in helping get around the barriers of shin pain. Evidence linking high-speed running to reduced risk factors pertaining to shin splints came from a 2014 study published in the Journal of Science and Medicine in Sports. The researchers found that muscle activity in the shin area significantly decreased as running speed increased. And remember, most often, a reduction in muscle activation is consistent with a relaxed muscle. And in terms of shin splint prevention, you may always benefit from reduced muscle activation in the shins during faster running because there may be less inflow of mechanical engagement. Overall, this data piece means that there is less rapid muscle activation in the shins at faster running speeds, which is very unlikely to incite shin pain and throbbing since the shins seem to be a little bit more relaxed when you run faster. Interestingly, one of the intervening variables for the reduction in shin muscle activation was that at faster running speeds resulted in less forefoot lifting and a reduction in ground contact time. So taken together, this means that at faster running speeds, there is less forefoot lifting and less forefoot smacking at touchdown before each step. Meanwhile, foot ground contact time duration is shortened, which may help spread less transmission of impact force pulses through the lower leg. This is really a win-win situation because at faster running speeds, the shins, or anterior tibialis to be more specific, are more relaxed, less tense, and less strained. Several research groups have impressively highlighted a very positive correlation between muscle activation and oxygen consumption, whereby as muscle activation increases, so does oxygen consumption. Now, conversely, if muscle activation decreases, like it does in the shins at faster running velocities with using a forefoot strike landing pattern, then oxygen consumption decreases too. It would then follow that since there is less muscle activation in the shins at touchdown during faster running speeds while forefoot striking, there may be less muscle metabolism going on in the shins, which may essentially help free up energy, save energy, helping to diversify your energy supply during running, which may give you a whole new set of potential to improve your overall running performance. Other research has certified that, believe it or not, runners actually become more economical at paces of around a 6:37 to a 6:15 minute mile, as compared with slower running velocities, partly because at faster running speeds, there seems to be less muscle force generation in the lower leg, so there may be less continuous infusion of muscular fatigue while running faster, especially while landing with a forefoot strike, seems to put everything mechanically more into place, which is why it often feels smoother and better on the body when you run fast while using a forefoot strike, probably because you become more effective at accurately aligning your forefoot strike minus the excessive forefoot lifting and forefoot smacking when you run at faster running velocities, because in contrast, excessive forefoot pulling and forefoot smacking really creates excessive braking and a significantly large collision force, which rattles the shins as well. When you run fast, conversely, you are in a better position to let your forefoot fall so that your foot slides into a smoother placement with the ground, so you end up with less jolting and less thudding. Conversely, if you watch pro runners who go from running fast to stopping when they cross the finish line, the first thing you'll notice is that they instantly pull their forefoot back to effectively apply the brakes to stop running. But during running, you don't want this type of braking engagement with the foot on the ground, i.e. constant forefoot lifting, when you are trying to maintain forward momentum in a smooth, less rigid way. That's why by not lifting your forefoot before each step is central to helping reverse braking and generates smoother, more optimal forward momentum with very minimal resistance. You don't want to idle in a storm of competing forces that prevents you from moving forward when you run. This is why faster running speeds certainly may help create the mechanical climate that seems to naturally attract easily sustained forward momentum, keeping your forward momentum more stable because your cadence or step rate becomes higher. And from this, you don't have enough time with your foot to forefoot lift at each step when you run faster. Essentially, running faster naturally helps keep your forefoot down at each step. The forefoot is in a better position to land on the forefoot with greater precision, and overall, this may be valuable in keeping the shins happy. Nevertheless, this is how running faster, aim for speeds faster than a 7:30-minute mile, nothing slower than that. If you are really grappling with shin splints, of course, but if you've never had shin splints, then keep doing what you're doing because it's obviously working for you. But if you are having an ongoingly hard time with getting over shin splints, speeding up your pace when you run may potentially seal the deal in strengthening your capacity to potentially beat the condition, because there's those changes in muscle activation patterns, and that there's less muscle activation in the shins when you run faster, which is a well-known scenario that seems to help save more energy. And of course, there's less allocation of additional impact forces penetrating through the shins when you run faster with a forefoot strike landing pattern versus when you trot and thud and run slow with a heel strike landing pattern. Likewise, don't place too much reliance on running too slow. Running slow certainly sounds like a positive as a means to keep impact low and shin splints prevented, but keep in mind that greater impact production, partly by longer ground contact time of the foot, meaning the foot is spending more time on the ground when you run very slow for too long, and more repeated thudding and thudding with the foot on the ground can really bog down the shins. Knowing this type of information, this should change the way we think about running speed, such that running faster with a forefoot strike may not be so dangerous after all, but actually may be more of a crucial aspect that helps protect the shins rather than damages them. To its credit, running faster with a forefoot strike prompts to reduce ground contact time, so your feet are going to make lighter, quicker, more brief steps with the ground, and there's going to be less time for forefoot lifting and forefoot smacking, which has been proven to be a powerful tool for lifting threatening impacts away from the shins. I posted the link to the research paper that I just discussed below down in the description box, just to give you a clear picture and a more realistic assessment of getting the most of your capacity to safeguard your shins during running. I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more on the research regarding the health and performance benefits of forefoot running and the health harming effects of heel strike running, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you will also stay up to date on the latest regarding the health and performance benefits of barefoot running as well as middleless running. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun up there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.